What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another chess lesson, and in this video I want to talk about trading pieces. And by trading pieces, all I mean is exchanging one of your pieces for an enemy piece. Now, a lot of beginners, whenever they first start learning how to play chess, what they do is whenever they see any opportunity to capture an enemy piece, even if it means sacrificing one of your pieces, then they take it. Just because, I don't know, they like being aggressive, they like attacking. However, this blind, just taking your opponent's pieces whenever you possibly can, is definitely not the best strategy to follow if you, of course, want to get better at chess. Now, luckily, the idea of when you should decide to trade or not to trade is a simple concept to follow. You should trade only when it benefits you in some kind of way. So whenever you have the option to make a trade, you should always ask yourself, how is this trade going to benefit me? Now, if the answer that you come up with is satisfactory, so maybe the answer is, well, it's going to leave me with a better pawn structure. Or after this trade, maybe I'm going to have a better outpost for my knight. Those are answers where you would say, okay, in that case, I do want to make the trade. Now, if the answer is, well, I don't know, I guess it's just even, or actually this isn't going to benefit me, my opponent's going to end up with a better structure or position or tomato, then you do not want to make the trade. Now, it sounds simple, but believe it or not, a lot of people, they make these mistakes. So in this position that I have set up here, I am going to notice that, okay, I have this nice square that I would eventually like to get my knight to, because if I can get my knight to e6, then I could fork the enemy queen and the enemy rook on d8 and f8. Now, I can't just go ahead and move my knight right here. I mean, I could, but let's think this through. If I were to take my knight and move it to e6 right now, then what would likely happen is this bishop would capture my knight, then I would capture the bishop, and okay, so I would be attacking the knight, but then they would just move it out of the way, maybe up to here, and it would just be an even trade. I mean, the knight's worth 3 points, the bishop is worth 3 points, so okay, even trade. However, if you remember the rule, if you say, how's this trade going to benefit me, and you can't come up with a way that it's going to benefit you, in other words, if it's just even, you do not want to make that trade. Now, luckily, in this position, trading knight for bishop, it isn't the only option. We have another trade available as well, and that is bishop for bishop. So let's go ahead and consider the possibility where I'm going to take my bishop on g2 and offer a trade on h3. So if I can take my bishop and move to h3, then they're obviously going to want to capture that. So instead of talking through, I might as well just play this out. So I'm going to take my bishop, move it up to h3. Now they're going to essentially need to capture, because if they don't capture at this point in time, then I'm going to take the next turn. And whenever they take back with the queen, I can capture that with my knight. Now, they obviously don't want that to happen, so they are going to go ahead, and even the engine recommends it, to capture on h3. So, okay, I obviously just don't want to lose a bishop, so I'm going to capture it with my queen, and here we are. I traded a bishop, they traded a bishop, we both lost the bishop. Sounds like an even trade, right? Well, the reason that I decided to make that trade was because at the end of this, I now have the ability to make this fork. And of course, since it's their turn to move, they're going to want to do something like move their king. And now, again, they had to move their king because they were in check. Just want to point that out. Now what I can do is fork the enemy queen and rook. So again, that's an example of I had a couple of different options of how I wanted to trade, or even if I wanted to trade. And the option that I went with was trading my bishop for their bishop, because even though in point value we were equal, I ended up with a preferable position. Now, another consideration that you should take note of whenever you're thinking about whether or not to trade pieces is that whenever you have a material advantage, and by that I mean whenever you're up in points, you should consider making an equal trade, because it will increase your advantage. So what exactly do I mean by that? Because if I'm up by 1 pawn or 1 point and I make an even trade, let's say knight for knight, how is my advantage going to increase? I'm still going to be up by just 1 point. Well, to demonstrate that idea, I actually set up this kind of silly position where it's a king and 8 pawns against a king and 7 pawns. So right now, white is up 1 point. They're up 1 pawn. This one right here is missing. So in essence, it's kind of an even game. I mean, it's pretty much even. White, we could say, has a slight advantage. Now let's go ahead and start taking off 1 pawn from each side. So we'll remove 1 from black, 1 from white. Okay, still kind of even. Let's keep doing this. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. All right. So now it's 4 pawns against 3. Now, even though white is still only up 1 pawn, they are, they're in a really dominant position right here. And if we were to go to the extreme and trade it down where, again, white is still only up 1 pawn, but right now it's 2 against 1, that 1 pawn makes a big difference. In essence, white has double the army. If we exclude the kings, it has double the size of the army as black. So in this position, white is just completely dominating, where when it was 7 against 8, they had, we could say, a slight advantage. So that's what I mean by whenever you have a material advantage, each equal trade is going to increase your advantage. Now, the last major point I want you to consider whenever you're thinking about whether or not to trade is that you should trade whenever your pieces are going to need more space to move. Now, in this position I have set up, it is actually black's turn to move, and if we look at the chess engine right here, what Stockfish is recommending is actually the 2 moves is d6 and e6 for black. Now, those 2 moves are d6 here and e6 right here. Now, if you're thinking about this and saying, wait a minute, both of those moves are essentially putting their pawn in danger. They're going to be captured immediately. So why would the chess engine recommend these? And that is because if we take a look at black's position, they really don't have anywhere to go. I mean, this knight can't move anywhere. This bishop, it's really blocked in. It's not going anywhere useful. Same thing with this knight. It doesn't have any really useful squares. So even though this move is going to essentially trade off a pawn or essentially lose a pawn, it's recommending it because black is really cramped in right now. So trading off these pawns, let's say capture, capture. So now you can see with those 2 trades, black has opened up some more possibilities to move out their minor pieces. So whenever you are in a position and you are feeling really cramped in, you can consider trading off some pieces to give you some more space to move around. So those are the core principles that I recommend following whenever you have the option to trade pieces. Essentially, if you can ask yourself, how is this trade going to benefit me? And you're satisfied with your answer, then hey, go for it, make the trade. If it's going to benefit your opponent, of course, don't make it. As always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next video.